All right. So Amazon just recently updated their policy regarding payment service providers. What is that? What does it mean? And how does it affect you? So that's what we're going to talk about here in this video. So I've been getting some questions about this topic. So as I record this, it was just yesterday that Amazon announced and started sending out emails. I ended up getting the email later than actually some people did. Some people got it a little bit earlier about this new payment service provider policy. And anytime the word payments is involved, of course, I'm one of those folks too. I get kind of a little anxious, like, wait, what does this mean? So I think this is actually a good thing, and we'll get more into the specifics about what this policy is. But just real quick, just to make sure we're speaking on the same language or singing off the same sheet music, as they say. Basically, what a payment service provider is if you are selling on Amazon, Amazon's going to have this money for you and they got to put it somewhere. And so if, let's say, you're selling on Amazon in the US and you're from the US, you have a, let's say, Bank of America account, they just put the money in your Bank of America account, US dollars that you're getting, and they're putting into your US dollar bank account. Well, if you are selling in an international marketplace, let's say Canada or the UK, and you're in the US or somewhere other than that country, what will happen is, let's say you have Canadian dollars or British pounds, and then Amazon will take that money and put it into your bank account. So let's just say it's with Bank of America. Well, Bank of America here in the States, and most banks in every country are like this, where they'll only accept their currency. So you can't just say, here's Canadian dollars, Bank of America, you figure it out. They say, we'll gladly accept US dollars, but you're going to have to convert it first. And so what Amazon can do is just convert it for you. So what happens is, if your disbursement is at, let's say, 5 o'clock on a Saturday, whatever the conversion rate is, they give it to you. And this is normal across the board. And Amazon's actually gotten more competitive on their rates. They will take a little piece of that and keep it, essentially. And that's actually normal. So it can be anywhere from 0 to 2% of whatever your disbursement is, not your total sales, but just your disbursement. And that's normal when you're moving currency, because anytime you move currency, it's never a let's say an itemized cost. It's just baked into your conversion rate. So if you went on like xe.com to look at exchange rates, or you went on Google and said like CAD, Canadian dollars to US dollars, or British pounds to US dollars, you're going to always lose just a little bit, because what that is, and it always says in the fine print, when you look up those rates, it says mid-market rates. So when Amazon moves it, they keep a little bit basically for the convenience of it. And that's normal. That's standard across the industry. Now, what some people do, and I actually do this myself, is rather than saying, okay, Amazon, put my money into, let's say, Bank of America, they say, put it in this local account in Canada, or put this in this local account in the UK. And the way that works is, generally speaking, to set up a bank account, you have to either, be a resident of that country or have a business entity there. So rather than having to go through all the hassle of setting up a business entity, which causes a whole new set of complications in another country, you could just use, let's say, your US LLC, for example, and have a company like Payoneer, Ping Pong Payments. Those are a couple examples of payment service providers that will basically be your intermediary. So they will accept those funds. Oftentimes they'll have where you could make payments to vendors at lower rates than you would do if you were going to do regular wire transfers through your bank, or if you needed to pay your tax bill in that country for, VAT or GST or whatever the case is. Oftentimes you can pay that in the local currency. So that way you're not losing anything in that conversion. And then you also have a little bit more control on, rather than Saturday at 5 o'clock or whatever time your conversion happens, because that's when they do the disbursement. So it just all happens and just, here's all your money. You have a little bit more control to say, well, I'm going to hold some of it back for taxes. I'm going to hold some of it back because maybe I want to pay a vendor. And so that way I'm not having to worry about converting things back and forth, potentially even twice. That it's just, you're moving money within the same currency, so there's no loss there. And also, if you want to play the game of, well, maybe the currencies will be a little bit more favorable in the future. So, whatever the case is, if you want to play that game, you're able to do that too. So you have more control on the when. And so those payment service providers will generally charge you whenever you actually are moving the money, let's say your Canadian dollar account into, now if you want to move into Bank of America, Citibank, wherever you bank, let's say in the United States. And so that's the gist of what a payment service provider company does. I think it's a good idea to use one. And I also think it's a good idea, because I've gotten nervous about it before over time, just to make sure that it is somebody reputable. Because, sometimes you're talking about, tens of thousands, or if you're a really big seller, potentially even hundreds of $1,000s that might be in a disbursement, or the equivalent of that amount of money. And so you may have all this money being held in other currencies. Well, you want to know that like they're legit. And so what Amazon's doing, and this is something I think is actually a good thing, they're putting a little bit more stringent requirements on those companies. So just now to go into the policy itself here. So just to show you here, this is the policy that they sent out. Do you need to take any action if you use one of their PSPs that they recommend, which I'll show you which ones they are? Then you don't have to worry about this. Just keep going. If you are using a non-participating PSP, meaning it's not in their special program, that basically they're going to reserve your money for an extra 21 days after the estimated delivery date. So that will basically delay when you get your money. And then it says after July 21st, they will stop disbursements to non-participating PSPs altogether. So I'll show you another page here in a moment, which are some of the PSPs that they recommend. And I'll give you kind of my thought on it as well. What should I do if I'm using Amazon currency converter system? That's basically if Amazon's saying, okay, here's your Canadian dollars, your British pounds, your euros, your yen, or whatever. And then they just put it into your, just for example purposes, your Bank of America account, your local account. So they move the money into your local currency for you. And so I'm a fan of having the intermediary account. I know sometimes it can be a little scary with that, but I think it's worthwhile because it can save you money with, sometimes how you're paying things like tax bills in other countries, or you're paying, maybe a vendor, or you have a prep center that you work with in that country, or something along those lines. And so there are use cases for it. Or if you have somebody doing your taxes in that country, doing your filings, you can pay for that. And those are all things I legitimately do with those. So a couple other things I have on here. So these are some of the companies you can use. In fact, this is the entire list. Now, one thing just to note, the currency converter, which I believe this is just Amazon doing it for you, which is kind of a default setting. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that, what Amazon currency converter is, if it's a slightly different program than Amazon moving the money, let's say from Canadian dollars to US dollars before they put it into your US bank account. Air Wallets, not familiar with them. It looks like they're in Hong Kong. World First, I used to use World First, but then I remember about 2 years ago, all of a sudden I got a phone call from a British number, like randomly at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if I remember correctly, which would have been like 10 o'clock at night there. And they were like, you need to take your money out within like 24 hours or something like that. So something happened and they were no longer able to work with American sellers. And then there's Lilian Pay, which I believe is for Chinese sellers. And then, so basically, if you're in the US, you've got Ping Pong and Payoneer. So I can tell you from experience, I use Payoneer. Ping Pong is, as far as I know, they're a pretty good, reasonable company. I've spoken with reps from both companies. They both claim that they've got really good rates. Can't say which one's slightly better than the other. I just know I've had good experience with Payoneer. So far, when I've had conversations with the folks from Ping Pong, they seem like good people. It seems like a legit company. Both companies seem to want to do the right thing. I know they have compliance things. Sometimes it can be a frustration of having to provide like statements or documentation. But once you go through all that, it's all good. But it's not a requirement that you have one of these companies. But what's noticeable is there's companies that maybe you have heard of, like TransferWise, for example, is not on here. So I don't know if that's down the road. I've heard of people using TransferWise. There's a few others. So Amazon won't be connected with those companies if they don't get on the program. And so if your company isn't on this list, with whether, they update this list or not, then you might have to find another company. If you have money going straight into your bank account, you may want to consider getting one of these companies. Again, if you're in the US, looks like these are your two options. I will just say this: I am an affiliate of Payoneer, which oddly enough, they just sent me a updated promotion the other day. So depending on when you're watching this may or may not be available, but they had where you get $100 sign up bonus, which I believe it was like you had to send in, or you had to transfer at least $1,000. I think that's US dollars. So either way, it's free to sign up. It doesn't cost you anything until you transfer money. And it's basically, as far as I know, and these might vary sometimes depending on your level of sales by like 0.5% or 0.25% here or there. But for the most part, they're all pretty competitive in that, let's say 0 to, I think 1.5 or 2% fees they charge you. And again, it gives you the ability to have money, or have a little bit more control over when your money moves. So hopefully this all makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments down below, or I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Do you think this is a positive thing? Do you think this is a negative thing? Does this put you out in the dark of now you can't use the company you were using before? Do you think that this is a good thing that they're protecting sellers? If you found this video to be helpful, please consider giving a thumbs up. And also, if you have not yet started your international expansion, or just want to get a little bit more of a sense of how to do that, that is something I help sellers with. And I actually have a free download. It's a checklist that'll walk you through step by step how you can grow your own international business on Amazon, selling the products you're already selling, which is one of the best ways, I truly believe, to grow your business. It has been for me. And so again, there'll be a link to that down below, as well as a link to Payoneer and a link to the articles that Amazon had there as well. So I wish you the best in your e-commerce journey. Take care.